Hey there, MCU fans. Today we're going to be ranking all of Phase 4. Yes, everything, including everything on Disney Plus, from TV shows to special presentations. But before we get started, I would like to say thank you to those of you that have subscribed in the past 24 hours or so. Got a nice subscriber boost. Thank you. It truly means the world to me. And if you're new, if this is your first video, join them and hit that subscribe button so we can keep growing towards 300 subscribers. Now, let's get into some MCU talk. We're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. And I'm going to be starting off with What If over on Disney Plus, the first animated foray for the MCU. While this was on, I truly enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun time. Some of the episodes didn't work as well as some others, but there was some really cool stuff in there. As a big Marvel Zombies fan, I enjoyed that episode. The Ultron stuff with the Infinity Gauntlet was cool. The Doctor Strange episode, of course, was really cool. But once we kind of learned that it wasn't going to tie in at all, like the Captain Carter in What If isn't the Captain Carter in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So this show really has no consequences whatever inside of the MCU. So that's why it hit the bottom of the list. And I don't even know if I'm going to watch season 2. We'll have to wait and see. Up next is another Disney Plus project, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. There are parts of Falcon and the Winter Soldier that I truly enjoy. Either, like, when he becomes Captain America, I was, like, doing a backflip off my couch. I thought that was awesome. All the stuff with Carl Lumley was great. Of course, setting up Patriot for the Young Avengers. I thought the Winter Soldier was just, I don't think he really needed to be there. Like, the stuff with him and, the Dora Milaje, it was just kind of, it was like, I don't know if I need this. Baron Zemo was great. I didn't love the decision to make Sharon Carter, like, an antagonist figure. I didn't love that. The John Walker was cool, of course, probably outside of Anthony Mackie becoming Captain America, like the most famous shot from this whole show. One of the most famous shots in Phase 4, if I'm being honest, is the Captain America shield dripping the blood after he kills that guy with it in like episode 3 or 4. So like there was some stuff I really enjoy about the show, but overall just didn't really land to me. It started, the whole Val Thunderbolt setup stuff alongside Black Widow, but it just like, and I don't see myself ever really going back and rewatching this like I will some of the others, and that's why it's close to the bottom of my list. Up next is a theatrical experience, Thor Love and Thunder. If you watched my Black Panther review a few days ago, you'll know when this first came out, I really enjoyed it. I was like, oh, this is like possibly my favorite Thor movie. I love it. It's so good. After a couple of rewatches, both in theaters and at home, my grade has dropped down each time I've watched it, which is kind of disappointing because I loved Thor and Thor Ragnarok. The Dark World. We don't talk about the Dark World here, but this one I was like really excited for, and I thought I loved it, but I don't. It's fine. Again, like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, there is stuff that I like about this movie. I thought the stuff with Stormbreaker being jealous of Mjolnir, I thought that was hilarious, but I thought we needed more gore, like maybe actually killing some gods. And I thought we could have used, some time with Jane Foster learning how to become Thor, because one scene she's getting the hammer, and the next she's like god tier, no pun intended, and it was a miss. Overall, it was a miss, and that's why it is the lowest film on my list. Up next is She-Hulk. I think I liked She-Hulk more than a lot of dudes on the internet did, but it was still missing something, and like some of the other Disney Plus shows, it was kind of stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. Like the first 2 episodes, really liked. The third episode with the shape-shifting grandma just made me so mad. It felt like a stupid current day Nickelodeon show. It was stupid. One of the, honestly, probably my least favorite thing in Phase 4, but then it had some great stuff like Daredevil coming into the MCU officially. The stuff in the finale I actually really liked, where she's swinging through Disney Plus. I thought that was cool. So again, stuff I loved was in She-Hulk. I thought Tatiana Maslany was fantastic. I thought Wong was really cool in the episodes he showed up in, but overall it just kind of missed the mark because it had more episodes that missed, in my opinion, than hit. But I do look forward to seeing the characters from this show again, whether it's in a season 2, Kang Dynasty, whatever. I do look forward to seeing them again. It just, this season had more misses than hits, but the hits were huge. Up next on my list is Black Widow, the first project in Phase 4. I don't think there's much wrong with this movie. Like, it's a perfectly serviceable movie. It just came out 5 years too late. This should have came out right after Civil War. It should have came out right before Doctor Strange, right after Civil War, and I think that's where it landed. I get why they didn't, 'cause looking back now, this film was definitely more about setting up Yelena than saying goodbye to Scarlett Johansson. And, now she's a big part of Phase 4 Yelena, so it makes sense that it was the beginning project. But Taskmaster, one of my favorite villains, whether it's in games, comics, video games, TV shows, whatever, one of my favorite villains. I don't think they really did that character justice in this movie. She was kind of lame, not because it was a girl, just because it was kind of lame. You kind of figured out what was going on there. The villain wasn't the best, and that's probably the biggest knock I can have about this movie. But overall, it was serviceable. It was just there. There's nothing bad, but there's nothing outstanding about it either. Up next is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This one, again, while it's better than Thor in my opinion, obviously, as where it ranks in the list, it also has stuff that I really like and stuff that I didn't really like. And for being called the Multiverse of Madness, doesn't really get into too much multiverse stuff if you think about it. We only really go to what? You got the world in the beginning with America Chavez, our world, and then the world they end up in. Of course, they do that montage of all the different worlds, but you only really spend time in 4 worlds, I guess, because Doctor Strange goes to the other one at the end. But tied to What If, I thought this was going to have, that Captain Carter. I thought this was going to have that evil Doctor Strange. And they certainly feel like the same characters, but the creators of What If said they are not the same characters because they want to use those characters again in What If, but they can't if they're dead, apparently. They could just set it beforehand or whatever with multiverse stuff, but they completely killed the momentum of this movie for me when they said it didn't connect to What If at all. Benedict Cumberbatch is great. I thought America Chavez was great. Wong, fantastic. Elizabeth Olsen stole the freaking movie. I really want the Scarlet Witch solo series, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with her. But like I said, lots of stuff I liked about this movie. I thought the Illuminati was cool, but it almost felt like a little bit of a tease, like they were like playing with you, but they weren't going to finish the job, if you know what I'm saying. And that's kind of how it felt. Maybe it was supposed to feel that way, but I didn't like it. And with it being Sam Raimi, it did certainly feel like Evil Dead inside of the MCU. There's an evil book, Bruce Campbell's there hanging around, there's a zombie guy involved, it kind of feels like Evil Dead with a Doctor Strange overlay. Next up on my list, we're jumping back over to Disney Plus to talk about Moon Knight. Moon Knight was definitely my most anticipated project for Phase 4, outside of Spider-Man, but come on, it's freaking Spider-Man. And that was before, the other Spideys were involved. But Moon Knight has always been one of my favorite comic book characters. He's like Batman, but messed up in the head, really messed up in the head with the split personality disorder and whatnot. And when they dive into that in this show, it's excellent. And this show, again, I know it's like a repeating myself thing here, but lots of stuff I love, but there were a couple things I hate. Like a lot of the Disney Plus shows, I thought it started off real strong. Like the first 2 or 3 episodes killed it, and then it kind of drips down for 4 and 5, and then it came back up for 6. I know a lot of people didn't like the finale of the show, but I was very entertained by it. I liked it a lot. I liked the big battle with Khonshu and the other demon. I thought Moon Knight looked cool. I thought the other superhero, what's her name, Scarlet Scarab, she looked cool. I'm excited to see where they take these characters inside of the MCU next, especially with that dope post-credit scene introducing Jake Lockley. I hope we get a season 2. I think we're gonna get a season 2. They've been teasing it a lot lately without actually confirming it, so I'm excited for Moon Knight season 2. Season 1 was it was really good, but it wasn't great like I was really hoping it would be. Next up on my list, another Disney Plus project, Hawkeye. Now this one surprised me because this is probably the one I was least looking forward to. Hawkeye, he's fine, he's a cool character, I guess, but I'm not I need a whole show dedicated to him. And then when they were we're gonna dive more into the Ronin stuff, I was like, you have my attention, sir. And then they dived into it a little bit, but not really. Again, this show was more about setting up Kate Bishop, Haley Steinfeld, and they did a great job right from the opening scene when she knocks down the clock tower. She's great. She's fantastic in everything she's in this, including Vera Farmiga's great. As you know, the red herring, is she good, is she not? Swordsmaster was excellent. Timothy Dalton crushed it. He was possibly the best actor in this show. He was so damn good, and it was kind of cool seeing him play as this character and his character on Better Call Saul concurrently. That was a really cool thing to see. And of course, they introduced Kingpin into the MCU through this show. While it was cool to see Kingpin, they kind of neutered him a little bit. He was whooping Daredevil's ass in the Netflix show, and it's supposed to be the same Kingpin, and yet Kate Bishop, who's new to the scene, kind of one-upped him in his fight, and of course we're going to see more of him in Echo next year, which is exciting, but I liked seeing him, but they kind of neutered him a little bit. But I love the introduction of Kate Bishop and Swordsmaster. He was really cool. I hope he comes back. But is this the last we see of Clint Barton? I don't know if we'll be able to sit back and not get involved in the Avengers movies coming forward, but we'll have to wait and see. Jumping back over to the theatrical experience, we're going to talk about Eternals. Again, I like this one a lot more than some people do. The more I watch this one, the more I like it. It's like the opposite of Thor: Love and Thunder. I've probably watched it 4 times now. Really enjoy it. I like the characters. Pip, not a huge fan of Pip. She can kind of go away. I'm glad she's probably not going to be in the sequel. I'm very excited for what it sets up with, like, the Black Knight and what's going on with, the Celestials that suck him up into the sky. Harry Styles as Star Fox. I wonder how that's going to connect, because we haven't gotten any announcement for an Eternals 2, how they're going to tie into the Avengers and stuff. I do think something with Phastos, like, I think he might have created the 10 rings in Shang-Chi or something. I feel like that's how it's going to connect, probably more than anything. But I'm definitely excited to see where the Eternals go. I'm kind of bummed Icarus dies at the end, though, because I really like him as a bad guy. I thought he could have come back in the future. But nonetheless, Eternals gets a pretty decent spot in my list. Jumping back over to Disney+, Miss Marvel gets the next up. When I first watched Miss Marvel, I was like, this is the best Disney Plus show, and I agree that it's great. Like, I think it's a great show, and I did not expect much. I thought the trailer for this was pretty dog shit, actually, but the show itself was great. Iman Vellani is fantastic as the character. I can't wait to see her in the Marvels. That's why I'm excited for that movie now. The supporting cast around her was great. Some of the best scenes in Phase 4 were just her family dynamic, and it was fantastic to see. Of course, this continued to set up the Department of Damage Control as a force to be reckoned with inside of the MCU, and that's why it gets about the halfway point in my list. Next up, WandaVision, the actual first project of Phase 4. I love this show. I don't care what anyone says. I loved it the whole way through. I thought it was a very cool thing to do as you watch the mystery unravel. You get to see the Agatha of it all. Agatha all along. And then you get to see at the end episode where it turns into a Marvel movie, essentially, for those people that were kind of like, this show's boring. You get that big payoff at the end. And it set up some cool stuff that did lead into an interesting Scarlet Witch story in Doctor Strange and some White Vision stuff that we're apparently going to see in a show called Vision Quest. Up next is Marvel's first Halloween special, Werewolf by Night. This is kind of where we get into the projects that I love. I loved Werewolf by Night. I watched it twice in a row, like 1, 2. I loved it. I thought it was great. I went in not knowing what to expect. Michael Giacchino, great composer, but I was like, how's he going to direct? How am I going to connect to this story? I loved it, and it was kind of cool because it doesn't really connect to anything much at all, but I would love to see like yearly Halloween specials following Elsa Bloodstone around. And, Man-Thing does connect into the, Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars of it all, so that could be how it ties in. I'm curious to see if we'll see more of these characters before then. I hope so, because I loved this special. Up next, sticking with Disney+, Loki. Loki Season 1 is fan-freaking-tastic. Of course, might be the most important thing we've seen so far in the Phase 4 because of, Kang. Kang more or less gets introduced through this show. The introduction of Sylvie was great. This really started us in the multiverse story with all the different Loki variants. I never thought I'd see Alligator Loki on my screen live action, but there he was in his full glory. Tom Hiddleston was fantastic as always. Owen Wilson, was fantastic in this show, as was everyone else, and I cannot freaking wait for Season 2. It might be my most anticipated Disney Plus project for next year. Up next, we're going to be jumping into the theatrical experiences for the rest of this video. So up next is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This film was great. I loved it. I saw it 3 times in theaters. It felt like classic MCU. Like, watching Shang-Chi, I was like, this feels like I'm back watching, like, Iron Man for the first time. It felt great. It was a great introduction. The fight scenes were incredible. On the bus, on the skyscraper with the scaffolding. The end was dope with the dragons. I loved everything about this movie. Simu Liu is great as the character. I can't wait to see what... is it Daniel Destin Cretton? Is that his name? The director. I can't wait to see what he does with Kang Dynasty. I love this movie. I can't wait for a sequel. Apparently it's going to be called A Wreckage of Time. I love Shang-Chi. This movie is great. Possibly my favorite origin story in the MCU since Guardians of the Galaxy. Up next is last week's new release, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. I love this movie. If you watch my review, you know that. The more I think about it, the more I like it. I do need to go see it again for sure. Just everything they did, and I was looking forward to it, but I wasn't stoked out of my mind until the day of. Then I was like, okay. And then going into it, I was like, I know this is what they're going to do, and I don't like that. But the way they did it in the end result, I ended up very much liking, as you can tell in my review. So Wakanda Forever gets the second spot on my list, and that only leaves one more project. I talked about it earlier briefly. That's right, top project for me is Spider-Man No Way Home. Is it the best made movie? I don't know. I might give that to Shang-Chi, but this is the one that I find myself going back to rewatch the most. The, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield of it all. Fantastic. It was kind of shitty that it got ruined before the movie came out, but it was cool nonetheless. All the villains coming back was great. Willem Dafoe, I truly believe that he's like the best villain in comic book history, bar none. Like over Heath Ledger, over Thanos, like Willem Dafoe was Green Goblin throughout Sam Raimi's trilogy, and this is just incredible. The only thing I don't like is that it more or less confirms Norman Osborn doesn't exist in the main MCU, and I was really hoping for Giancarlo Esposito to play Norman Osborn in the MCU. Green Goblin's my favorite villain in Marvel history, so I was really hoping to see more or a different iteration, but maybe we'll see Ned Leeds eventually go down the path towards Hobgoblin, and that's how I'll get my Goblin juiciness. But yes, Spider-Man No Way Home gets the top spot in my ranking of MCU Phase 4. So if you're still watching, if you've made it through the entire 16 minutes of this long video, what is your ranking? Let me know down in the comments below. Let's talk. Just because my list is different than your list doesn't matter. If you liked What If the most out of Phase 4, that's awesome. Let's chat down in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys right here next time.